Welcome to my beginner's guide to critical hits. So, when we talk about critical hits, it's important to make a distinction between physical attacks and elemental attacks. But there is a bit of nuance there. So, here, if we go to the inventory and open the stats, in the offense stats, you can see critical hit chance, critical hit damage, spell critical hit chance, and spell critical hit damage. Now, we were talking about critical hit chance. What I'm going to explain in this video is mostly for the physical part, for the critical hit chance and the critical hit damage, which means the damage you deal when you match skulls. When it comes to spell critical hit chance, this number, 5%, cannot be increased. You cannot increase it with items or attributes or your citadel or any other means so far. Maybe in the future the developers will introduce items that increase this number, but so far is locked at 5%. The spell critical hit damage increases as you level up your spells, but when the chance is only 5%, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, once in a blue moon, meaning once in every 20 or so, at least on average, spells, you will get that critical. Great. But most of the time, spells will not deal critical damage. Now, when I said before, this has a little bit of a nuance, well, let me show you. There are certain spells, for example, this is the Mercenary, and the Mercenary has a spell, which is this one, Pay in Advance, gain power and gold bonus. If greed is active, deal melee damage. Some other classes, like for example the Berserker, also has one or two red spells that deal melee damage. This is not considered a physical attack. So if you cast that spell, the spell critical hit chance of 5% is the one that applies. So just to make it sure, critical hit chance and critical hit damage are only when you match skulls. Now, how do you increase critical hit chance and critical hit damage? First of all, critical hit chance is capped at 80%. That is the maximum amount, which means that with maximum critical hit chance, 1 in 5 times you will not get a critical hit. And 4 out of 5 times you will, on average. Again, I'm talking about general numbers. So, how do you increase your critical hit chance? In the long run, what you want is to find items that have critical hit chance. You can get up to 15.2% critical hit chance on a single piece of equipment when that single piece of equipment is maxed out. So if you have 5 pieces of equipment that are maxed out, you will have 76% critical hit chance. You can also put points here in your citadel to increase your critical hit chance under the poison magic slot, but the increase here is only 0.2% per point. So if you have 76% and you put 20 points here, you will get the 4% extra that you need to get to the 80%. But this is the long run, after you get good items with good attributes. So what do you do in the meantime? Because if you're running a physical build that deals damage with skulls, you really need to get critical hits in order to deal big damage. So there are a few pieces of equipment that can help you here. And most of those pieces of equipment are the gloves. Uh, it feels like I'm playing Diablo 2 again, back in the day. But so let's discuss some of the options here. One of the options are the guard's gloves. At mythical rarity, increases critical hit chance by 5% when matching 5 or more gems in one match. It doesn't matter what color, and skulls count as gems. Now, if you make 10 in a row, it doesn't count as twice. But if you make 5 gems in one corner and 5 gems in another corner of the screen, they will count twice. But note that this is after matching the gems. So the effect will be at the end of the turn. The next option are the dwarven gloves. I'm not sure if I have one. Let me see if I can find it. Do I have some gloves? Yes. Okay. These are only epic. Gain for the epic one 10%. If it was mythical, it will be 20%. Gain 20% critical hit chance when above half health. 20% critical hit chance is not bad at all, and especially because this works on round one. This works at the start, but it's only 20%, which is not that much. However, you can use these dwarven gloves with, as I said before, if you get 5 pieces of equipment with uh, full the full amount of critical hit chance increase, you will get 76. If you have 4 pieces of equipment with the maximum amount, you will have 60.8%. 60.8% plus 20% from the mythical dwarven gloves, you have 80%. So this is one of the options you can use. Another one are the Castuli. Let's see if I have one. Castuli set. Where are they? Here. These are legendary. Gain. This one is 80% because it's legendary. The mythical one gives 10%. Gain 10% critical hit chance for each big 5 gem or higher on the board. This one depends on having big gems, but they can also help increase the critical hit chance. And finally, and in my opinion, the best gloves you can use for critical hit chance, and as I said at the start, what you want in the long run is to have critical hit chance with attributes, so you can use different equipment. But when you start, the Trarch gloves. This one is epic, so it's only 1%. At mythical rarity, it will increase critical hit chance by 2% for each 10 for every 10 speed above 100. Now, if you're running these gloves together with the Savior, excuse me, not Savior, Runic boots, the Runic boots, again, this one is legendary. The mythical one increases 15% speed when you cast a spell, which means that in 2 or maybe 3 rounds, you will have maximum speed, which is 600, and that will give you the maximum amount of critical hit chance, which is 80. Those are different options to increase your critical hit chance. But all of those are gloves, which means that you can only choose one of them at a time. You only have 2 hands, right? However, there are other options. So let's go to Bloodfang. And here for the weapon, add, again, this one is legendary. The mythical one increases critical hit chance by 5% for each color gem on the board. What it means is that you need the Bloodfang Twin Blade to be the same color as the color you are using, but it increases considerably your critical hit chance. Now, this is after resolving all your matches. So it doesn't include all the, in this case, green gems that I'm matching in that round, but after they match, the remaining green gems plus the gems that will fall from the top of the screen are the ones that will increase the critical hit chance. Another option for starters, although this one is a big investment, but it can be very helpful when you start, is the Warlord set. If you have all 6 pieces of equipment at mythical rarity, they will increase your critical hit chance by 35%, which is a very good amount. However, this requires a big investment because you need all 6 pieces of equipment to be worn at once. And that includes the gloves, which means you cannot use a different type of glove with this one. However, the gloves will also increase your critical damage. Another option you can use is 2 pieces of equipment from the Corrupted Guard set. Let me find it here, Corrupted Guard. And if you wear 2 pieces of equipment at mythical rarity, it will increase your critical hit chance by 7% for each big gem on the board. A big gem is a gem, and this includes skulls as well, that have a numeral, a Roman numeral inside. So if you have several of those gems, it will increase the critical hit chance. There are other items and other options, but I think these are the easiest ones to obtain and use. But as I said, this is temporary. What you want in the long run is to have enough critical hit chance from attributes. So that's about critical hit chance. But okay, you get a critical hit, great. Now what? You need critical hit damage in order to get to the big numbers. In this case, I have plus 267 with this character. So how do you increase your critical hit damage? Well, again, going back to the Warlord set, wherein the full set will give you all these bonuses, but if you only wear 4 pieces, it will increase your critical hit damage by 80%, which again is not huge, but it's not too bad either. You can also increase your critical hit chance from your citadel. Each point you put on, critical hit damage from your citadel. Each point you allocate here will give you plus 1%. And you can also use a few pieces of equipment, like for example, the runic wristbands. Let's see if I have, yeah, oh well, I have one equipped, but add 10% of your highest mastery to critical damage amount. And remember that your mastery can go up really, really high. So if you have 5,000 critical hit mastery, you're increasing your critical damage by 500, which is not bad. The Warlord's Arm Guards, I already talked about them, but let's show them again. Will increase the critical damage, and obviously if you are wearing 4 pieces of equipment, they all add up together. And another item that you may consider using is the Firewalker Spear. Let's see if I have one. Yes, I do, which increases your critical damage for each color gem on the board. Again, this is a type of equipment like the Bloodfang Twin Blade that depends on the color. You want it to be the same color as the gems you are using and you are generating. However, the best way to increase your critical damage is also by attributes. And what you want in the long run, let's see if I can find one item that has, yeah, right here. This Amulet of the First has critical hit damage, plus 82.7%. With a fully upgraded, which means a quality of 1000 plus 400, so full refined and fully honed piece of equipment, you can get 152% critical hit damage in a single piece of equipment, which means that with all 12 pieces of equipment with critical hit damage, you can hit 1800 bonus critical hit damage, which is a lot. But of course, any amount of critical hit damage is useless if your critical hit chance is 0, obviously. You need to increase it. Now, there are certain spells, for example, in this case for the mercenary, has Find Weakness that gains critical hit chance every time you cast it, and there are a few other spells. Now, I don't remember exactly which ones, but I think there are one or two other spells that also increase critical hit chance. But basically, these are the fundamentals for critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Now, if you're using an elemental spell build, you don't really need it. For example, with my blue shaman, which I've showed in other videos, and I have 0% critical hit chance. And I think this 130%, I think the extra 30% is in one piece of equipment that I don't know. I don't remember where it comes from. No, it comes from the Citadel. This one comes from the Citadel because I'm using pure elemental damage, so I don't need to worry about critical hit chance. But if you're using a skull build and dealing damage with skulls, you need as high as possible critical hit chance, and obviously as high as possible critical hit damage to get to the big numbers. And that's with the video. If it was useful, please like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.